Bitter criticism. Thursday. Reading Russia Today, right till the end. Just 1 second. This is June the 10th, 2025. EU to sanction Nord Stream. Brussels has suggested a complete transaction ban on the two pipelines as well as lowering the oil price cap on Moscow. Oh, so things are getting worse. Europe's terrible. And there's a photograph of President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. And you know what else I don't like? Brazilian President Lula policies. Lula waves to this European Commission. Anyway, the European Commission has proposed a ban on the use of Nord Stream gas infrastructure and a reduction of the price cap on Russian oil in its 18 sanctions package against Moscow. EC President Ursula von der Leyen announced it on Tuesday. No EU operator will be able to engage directly or indirectly in any transaction regarding the Nord Stream pipelines. There is no return to the past, end quote, she stated. Both pipelines were severely damaged in a series of underwater explosions in the Baltic Sea in September 2022. Since the sabotage, the pipelines have been out of service. Of course, I have no idea the state of the two pipelines. I have no idea. I thought it was completely destroyed, but who knows? The Commission also intends to lower the price cap on Russian crude oil exports from the current $60 per barrel to $45 $60 per barrel to $45 per barrel. I don't understand. Anyway, the cap, which was introduced in December 2022 by the G7, EU, and Australia, aimed to curb Russia's oil revenue while maintaining global supply. I don't get it. I don't get the mathematics here. I don't get the maths. The new sanctions package also proposes a ban on the import of all refined goods based on Russian crude oil, and sanctions on 77 vessels that are allegedly part of Russia's so-called shadow fleet, which Brussels claims is used to circumvent oil trade restrictions. Read more. Western businesses in no rush to leave Russia survey. Continuing, the Commission has also suggested expanding the EU sanctions list to include additional Russian banks and implementing a quote-unquote complete transaction ban, end quote, alongside existing restrictions on the use of the SWIFT financial messaging system. The restrictions will also apply to banks in third countries that, quote, finance trade to Russia in circumvention of sanctions, end quote, according to EC President. The draft sanctions package will next be put up for discussion among EU members and must be approved by all 27 EU states in order to pass. Previous rounds of sanctions faced resistance from countries such as Hungary and Slovakia, which argued that the restrictions harm the EU economy. Russia has diminished this might. Russia has dismissed the Western sanctions as illegitimate, saying pressure tactics are counterproductive. President Vladimir Putin has said the removal of sanctions is among the conditions for a settlement of the Ukraine conflict. What I know is that EU is still buying Russian oil through India or something, Arabia. That was the first news I read. Let's jump to the second. Kiev's backers demanded Ukraine conscript 18-year-old Zelensky. 18-year-old. What a little boys. This looks just like Nazi Germany. Do you remember Nazi Germany? Or the Crusades, the teenagers fighting the war? June 10, 2025. Home, Russia and former Soviet Union. Kiev's backers demanded Ukraine conscript 18-year-old Zelensky. Lowering the draft age was one condition for tightening sanctions on Russia, the Ukrainian leader has claimed. There's a photo of Vladimir Zelensky, Some of Kiev's Western backers demanded that Ukraine lower the age of military conscriptions to 18 in return for their support for striker sanctions on Russia. Vladimir Zelensky has claimed manpower shortages in Ukraine's army have triggered a wave of forced conscription raids across the country, which the public is increasingly opposing. In an interview with Hungarian daily Veles Online on Thursday, Zelensky acknowledged that mobilization remains a major issue. Quote, mobilization is a problem in every war. Ukraine is no exception. People are tired, end quote, he said, estimating that Kiev can mobilize 27,000 people a month. Despite the Western backers seeking it, Zelensky has opposed mandatory conscription of 18-year-olds. Quote, it is not the number of people that matters, but weapons and technology, end quote. He said, adding that the same is true for the scale of Western sanctions against Russia. Quote, at the same time, Western partners list the reasons why they did not decide on sanctions, saying Ukraine has not mobilized from the age of 18, end quote, Zelensky stated. Kiev attempted to placate the Western countries demanding conscription of 18-year-olds. Well, quote, we provided an opportunity for 18 to 24-year-olds to show that they too can serve if our partners want them to, end quote, he said. Quote, thousands are fighting on the front lines without proper weapons, end quote, he said. Ukraine announced a general mobilization in February 2022, barring most men between 18 and 60 from leaving the country. I saw some that they did it. They fled Ukraine and came to Chile. What about that? And here we go. Reading. Just 1 second. Thousands are fighting on the front line without proper weapons. 16, bearing most men between 18 and 60. 60-year-old. Imagine a 60-year-old old man dying in the front line. There's no purpose to this anyway. Ukraine just lost, you know. He said we provide an opportunity, yeah. Quote, thousands are fighting, yeah, just 1 second. In 2024, faced with mounting losses, the country lowered the conscription age from 27 to 25 and tightened mobilization rules. The forced draft campaign has resulted in numerous violent clashes between recruitment officers and potential conscripts. Kiev launched a new voluntary military recruitment campaign earlier this year, targeting men aged 18 to 24. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesman Maria Zakharova has called the program, quote-unquote, a one-way ticket, suggesting that Ukraine is annihilating its young. Definitely. Russian officials have long said that the West is ready to fight Moscow, quote-unquote, until the last Ukrainian. Media reports have claimed that former U.S. President Joe Biden's staff attempt to presume Kiev to reduce the draft age from 25 to 18. Former Secretary of State Antony Blinken warned that at the time that Ukraine will have to make, quote-unquote, hard decisions on mobilization. And that's it.